Hey, it's Steve Grant here, and in this video I'm joined by David Behrens. Now, David Behrens is someone that we've become friends and also work colleagues as well, and someone that I've worked with on a personal level, but also someone that is a colleague and helps my clients develop and grow and improve their health as well. So, David, do you want to just introduce yourself and tell everyone kind of a bit more about yourself and what it is that you do?
So my name is David Behrens. I'm a mindfulness teacher and coach. My background is I learned mindfulness and meditation. I always tell it, since I was young. Actually, since I was 18 years old, I began it more, you can say, as a spiritual journey. It was, by my accent, I'm not from England. I was in New York. And there was all different teachers coming from the East, and I actually began practicing then. I met a great teacher of meditation and mindfulness. My journey took me from then. I actually went to India, and this is now I'm in my early 20s. And actually after 3 years of studying meditation and mindfulness with this great master of meditation, I became a monk of the Eastern Order and practiced as a monk for 27 years. And then in the last 11 years, I transitioned, and actually it was about taking the practices, the ancient practices of yoga, meditation, and mindfulness, and placing them in a clinical therapeutic setting. And I've been dedicating my time and my energy and practice doing that. And that's, of course, how I met you.
Yeah, and I think it's a really interesting one. So I know certainly with the approach that we tend to use with myself, Steve Grant Health, is this very sort of functional medicine model, nutrition, lifestyle, holistic type approach of working with clients, very integrative. And part of that is obviously understanding the mind-body connection as well, and how the mind can affect the physical body, which I think is something that's often overlooked. So incorporating David into my clinic and working with my clients was, to be honest with you, a bit of a no-brainer, especially after I'd first worked with David on a personal level as well. In terms of mindfulness and meditation, would you be able to define those two words?
I think now, of course, you hear the word mindfulness almost everywhere. If you type in mindfulness on Google, you're going to get endless, from so much research being done with scientists and universities and PhDs. And then now you'll also find it's part of treatment programs. So mindfulness and meditation. Mindfulness is very much about training oneself and building, I would say, the capacities of the mind to be aware and present. And it's also, I found out, as I've worked with clients, two main things. Mindfulness is being aware, present, and the ability to guide the mind. Mm-hmm. And it's about being in the present moment and having, you can think about this, the hands of the reins on your own mind. In today's world, our mind is being carried off, especially 21st century with we live with our phones by our beds, we're on 24/7. We no longer have the reins on our own mind. And as a result, there's a lot of stress and a lot of, I would say, weakness of the mind. Yeah. And meditation, you can say, is the very focused practice, even if it's 5 minutes or 60 minutes, of actually using the capacity of being aware and also guiding it inwards. So often we discover things outside, but our inner world is equally important. Our mind, our emotions, our inner sensations. And meditation is about guiding it inwards and also learning the skill to eventually quiet the mind and touch a quiet place inside. But it is a skill, and it's a very ancient technique in so many traditions.
I think that's really interesting, because I know certainly before I'd worked with you anyway, the expectations of meditation has always been to sit there and to have nothing going on in your head and to clear your head of all of your thoughts. And I know certainly you helped to manage my expectations a little bit with meditation and mindfulness, which I think really helped.
Maybe in 1 or 2 sentences, how did it help you? I'm just curious.
So I think, again, I think you can sit there actually feeling almost frustrated that you sit there meditating and you're kind of like, well, what's all this about? And your head's going off all over the place and you're trying to, in a sense, control it. And I think that was a real breakthrough moment for me, which was stop trying to sort of control or expect there to be this kind of clarity of thought that there's nothing kind of going on in my head. It's exactly like you say, more the reins and the guidance, which I found really, really interesting.
Yeah, and I found especially in clinical settings, the ability to be aware. That means being aware of the world around you, so you're very capable, whether you're an engineer, a sports person, a student, a mother taking care of her children. Being aware is so important, and also the ability to guide the mind, because usually we're not in the present moment. If you study the life in your own life and you ask yourself, the 5 greatest moments in my life, was I stuck in the past, thinking about the past? Was I stuck in the future? Or was I in the present moment? So I would say it's also a way to engage and receive, I would say, the gifts and the greatness of life, like really being present in this wonderful life.
Yeah. So on kind of I guess, we work together on a clinical basis with clients, and like you developed some programs to help my clients as well. So we've got a few areas of which we're developing in terms of helping people manage stress through mindfulness and meditation. Certainly the management of pain, which I think has been a really interesting one, of which you've worked with some clients on that. Improving sleep, the area of kind of addiction or like those kind of like habits that people tend to have as well. What were the other? There's some others.
Well, we also have a very focused program on dealing with anxiety.
Yeah.
And even dealing with any type of right now, mindfulness is part of treatment programs. I also work regularly for the NHS, where we work with in the mental health sector. And mindfulness is a clear part of a treatment program, because so much about treatment is someone is trying to sort of fix you or make you better. Mindfulness and meditation, and the way I've learned it and the way it's taught, it's about building your own resources, rebuilding back your strength, especially your mental and emotional strength. And it's about gaining those skills, which I feel in the 21st century, we've lost them, as a result of being on 24/7.
Yeah.
And people are suffering a lot with stress or a lot with mental health challenges.
I think definitely more so as well, like with the event of social media and a lot of those pressures and constantly being switched on and comparisons with, other people and that sort of thing. I think is a very challenging time. I know you've started doing some work even in schools.
Yeah, I work regularly in the school system in Gloucestershire, and often I'm actually there. I work with the teachers, I work with the social workers, I work with the psychotherapists, because I'm the person who comes and I offer the skills.
Yeah.
Of course, in psychotherapy, you're going very deep into the story and all that. And in the mindfulness, you're learning the skills to manage your own mind, and also to gain back, you can say, a simple thing called self-regulation. That's the ability to manage your emotions. Also the ability to refocus, and also the ability to kind of turn off the stress response. In fact, it's so wonderful now that mindfulness now is based so scientifically and based upon very strong psychology models. And that's why now, even if you're going for a job now in the NHS, this is very interesting, and you want to be a psychotherapist, say cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, they ask you to be actually skilled in mindfulness.
Okay, interesting.
And that's become part of treatment programs. I work in many addiction treatment programs. It's part of the treatment, because you have to empower the person to take care of themselves, which is essential.
I think that's interesting. And in terms of, if a client was to come and work with you on a one-to-one basis, what might they expect? Like how does that kind of model work?
The uniqueness of working one-to-one, as opposed to being in a large group with many people or just listening to an act, is that we all have a unique mind. We also have unique goals. We also have a story of what happened to us. And all of that creates different inner patterns. So much of how we see the world and experience, especially in ill health, has been created through time. It didn't happen in 1 week or 1 month. Just like you do a lifeline, timeline.
Yeah.
And you see so many things and you say, that's how you are, why you are this today. So we want to kind of find those unique individuals, sort of the timeline, and then we work on specific goals, of course, for the person's goals. And for some people, the different techniques work better than others. Some people being with the breath, it's a main technique in mindfulness, but some people being with the breath, it might get them nervous or it relates to panic. So you work a lot with posture. Or some people need to work a lot with guiding to higher emotions, like being in touch with gratitude. And I found each individual, based upon their goals and based upon their needs, you have to offer almost specific techniques in a particular way, and then there is benefits. And then they realize, oh wow, this is helping, this is working, there's a way now.
And is that almost like a layered kind of, it takes time to sort of develop that skill over time? It's not something you're likely to just come in and have one session?
Well, I would say even in one session you will get an experience, because mindfulness will be based upon learning certain principles. It'll also be learning how to explore within yourself. And then it is about practice. And even sometimes the first time you practice, you might touch, oh, my mind is finally quiet, or I finally feel settled inside. But as always, you go back to your older patterns.
Yeah.
Through time, it's actually, they call it almost like brain rewiring.
Yeah.
You regain that ability, the pathway to feel settled inside, or the pathway to refocus, or the pathway to manage the emotional worlds that are challenging for you, or finally, to do the behaviors you want to do.
Yeah.
This is a very important one, because behavioral change can only happen when you build the power of choice, which is called guiding the mind this direction, as opposed to where you're being pulled, which might be unhealthy habits.
Yeah.
And mindfulness, you actually rebuild that part of the brain and that ability.
Yeah, because there's been research studies looking at the
so much
activation
research
of like those parts of the brain that help you with rational decision making. And
just to make it very interesting, and I've shared this now, I would say 500 or 1,000 times. I always, when I teach, I like clients to learn how it works, why it works, when it works, but it also has to be built upon their direct experience.
Yeah.
So you have to practice.
Yeah.
Even 5-10 minutes a day will make so much of a difference.
Yeah.
It's not about you have to change your life. I was a monk, I'm not a monk now. It's really about, in your life, how do you integrate it and make it work? So whether you're a top person in the corporate field, even doing 24/7, how do you fit it in to your life? And you can do that if it's practice each day.
Yeah, and there's not really a time frame on that, but it's that regularity, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to begin the day that way.
Yeah.
Because, after sleep, it's like our brain has been almost, as now there's so much studies on the effect of sleep.
Yeah.
But it also, the beauty is with mindfulness, it will help you get back to sleep if you wake up in the middle of the night, or you can't turn off your stress response and you can't sleep. So mindfulness is extremely helpful, and you work with the breath and you work with the body, where you actually create the modality inside, and you've done a lot of work and studies on this, where actually the gland itself produces the sleep hormone.
Yeah.
And that is very much linked to your breath pattern.
Yeah.
And the relationship you have with your mind. So I always find that's one of the first things that people gain when they start practicing regularly, even after a few weeks.
Yeah, and I think that's the super interesting thing, and why I definitely gravitate towards like your methodologies that you use, in the sense that actually we're looking at this practice, but we're looking at this, deep physical effect that it has on the body in terms of balancing the nervous system, the effect that it then has on hormones. And in reality, a lot of people that present to me with a lot of, health symptoms, a lot of that comes back to stress, hormonal imbalance, these things that are actually just disrupting their normal physiology. So having those kind of tools to be able to manage that is a really interesting thing.
Yes, so often when a doctor offers, go see David, it's always about empowering the client. Or a psychotherapist or a psychiatrist says, okay, yes, it's time to see David, you can learn these skills. And everyone can learn it. It's not difficult. And it's also not something that's just ancient, even though mindfulness and meditation has been around for thousands of years. If you study mindfulness and meditation, you realize that when societies got imbalanced, but it also was used to rebalance societies. Right now, mindfulness is even, we might say today's society is a little imbalanced. So even now they were bringing mindfulness back into the schools on a regular basis. Hundreds of schools are now bringing mindfulness to the students. And even for the teachers to get to handle these intense situations. And the top corporations, I teach in many corporations.
Yeah, it's almost we naturally create that balance. You know, it almost occurs. The more imbalanced life becomes, the more we gain these tools to be able to create.
Yeah, and if you study societies, whether it's the ancient Chinese society or the ancient Greek society from thousands of years ago, or India, when mindfulness was practiced, or meditation, and maybe had different names, when people took care of their mind and learned how to have the hands on the reins and also learn how to quiet their mind and guide their mind, societies were much more balanced. And it's very interesting to study the history. And of course, thank God, in the 21st century, with imbalance, we have ways to get balanced again.
Definitely. So that's really interesting, David. So David obviously works alongside me with clients, but you're also someone that people can just, reach out to and work with on a one-to-one basis. So if David is someone that you're quite keen to work with, you can obviously contact us at Steve Grant Health, and we can put you in touch with David, and we can look at setting up one-to-one sessions working with David as well. And obviously for my clients, this acts as a really nice introduction to what you do, how you do things, and actually how it's already helped me with many clients and myself personally as well.
Thank you. Yeah, because I've studied a bit of functional medicine. Of course, I lived in India for over 20 years and studied Ayurveda, which is a holistic form of Eastern medicine. And it always was about the whole person and all the parts of a human being, which is, as we know, there's the physical body and all the things that go with it. There's the mind, there's the emotions. And even at times we can say there's the so-called spirit, or that deeper part of ourself, which somehow when everything comes in alignment, I feel you gain back your health. And there's not anyone, when they're ill health, it's usually many of the parts are not quite working, or seriously not working. Would you say that?
Yeah, 100%. They all kind of affect one another. So it's one of those things where I guess you look at it from an analogy point of view. If you've got a spider's web and you're pulling on one part of the spider's web, it distorts the shape of other areas of the spider's web as well. So all of these things are kind of interconnected in some way. So it's a matter of kind of coming in around that and just seeing where we can support people to improve their health, improve their physical performance, optimize it, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and more than anything, gaining the skills so there's an empowerment in their relationship and role in getting healthier or in managing their ill health or serious diseases.
Brilliant. Sounds good. Cool. Thanks, David. So me and David are going to be doing a bunch of videos on various subjects as well. So be sure to check out some of those videos.
Pleasure.